From the outside, the ancient Egyptian mummy looked like a cat. It was a small bundle of linen with pointed ears, a painted face, and the tidy silhouette of an animal sitting upright. It looked alert, dignified, slightly judgmental, which is exactly what you'd want from a cat that had been dead for more than 2,000 years. Then, researchers put it through a micro-CT scanner. The linen disappeared. The bones came into view. Inside was a kitten, less than 5 months old. Its neck had been deliberately broken. It may have been killed so its body could become a mummified offering connected to Bastet, the ancient Egyptian goddess most closely associated with cats. And that creates a problem with one of history's most comforting stories, because ancient Egypt loved cats. It may also have loved them to death. Everybody knows the familiar version. The Egyptians painted cats, sculpted them, buried them, associated them with gods, and generally seemed to understand something about them that the rest of humanity wouldn't figure out until the invention of the internet. Ancient Egypt had pyramids, mummies, and cats. Those are the 3 things everybody gets to keep after 7th grade history. But some of those mummies were cats, young cats. Cats that appear to have been intentionally killed so their bodies could be preserved, wrapped, sold, and offered to a goddess. So how did the civilization most famous for loving cats end up supporting an industry that killed them? To understand that, we have to get rid of the version of this story that lives in trivia books. Ancient Egyptians didn't discover that cats killed mice, immediately declare every cat a god, and then reorganize the legal system around making sure nobody accidentally stepped on a tail. Cats were enormously important in Egypt, but an ordinary house cat wasn't automatically a deity. A cat could be a pet, a hunter, a status symbol, a sacred representative, or an offering. Those roles overlapped, but they weren't all the same thing. The cat sitting beneath someone's chair in an Egyptian painting might have represented protection, fertility, household order, or divine power. Or it might have just been sitting beneath a chair. Cats have always enjoyed making symbolism difficult. The earliest relationship between humans and cats in Egypt was probably practical. Egypt depended on agriculture, and agriculture depends on storing large amounts of food in places where every rodent in the region can smell it. Grain wasn't just dinner. It was survival, wealth, wages, taxation, and government power. It was also an open invitation to mice and rats. Suddenly, your grain storage facility had become a thriving ecosystem, and none of the residents were paying taxes. Small cats lived around homes and granaries, hunting vermin and making themselves useful. They began appearing in Egyptian domestic scenes, sitting beneath chairs and accompanying people. At some point, they weren't merely wild animals tolerated near the food supply. They'd entered the household. But pest control doesn't explain everything. Oxen pulled plows. Donkeys carried goods. Dogs guarded homes and helped people hunt. Nobody built this particular religious fever dream around a donkey. The cat offered something stranger. A cat is a contradiction covered in fur. It can sleep in a patch of sunlight for 6 hours and then become an airborne knife because a moth made a tactical error. It can be affectionate and indifferent, nurturing and murderous, elegant and deeply embarrassing. A cat is small enough to curl up beneath your chair and dangerous enough to kill something that entered your home. It looks domestic, but the wilderness is still in there, compressed, waiting for a shoelace to move incorrectly. Ancient Egyptians seem to have recognized this combination of tenderness and violence because it already existed in their religion. Before Bastet became the cat goddess most people recognize today, she appeared as a lioness. She belonged to a larger world of feline goddesses connected with protection, motherhood, fertility, health, royal power, violence, and destruction. That sounds like too many jobs for one deity, but the roles made sense together. A lioness caring for her cubs, and a lioness tearing apart something that approaches those cubs, aren't expressing opposite qualities. They're doing the same job. Protection has teeth. Over centuries, Bastet increasingly took the form of a domestic cat or a woman with a cat's head. Her nurturing and protective qualities became more prominent, although the danger never vanished. The lioness had come indoors. Ancient Egyptians didn't simply look at a small pet, lose all perspective, and decide it was divine. A dangerous lioness goddess gradually took on the shape of the animal already living inside their houses. The cat mattered because it hadn't completely stopped being wild. It had simply agreed to live near people, under terms that have never been clearly explained. Cats could represent Bastet because they seemed to embody her qualities: alertness, fertility, grace, protection, and sudden violence. But that still didn't make every cat Bastet. Egyptian deities could be represented through animals without every individual animal being treated as the god itself. The cat made something invisible visible. You couldn't see divine protection wandering through your house, but you could see a cat destroy something that threatened it. And once an animal becomes a bridge between humans and a god, its body can become useful in an entirely different way. The mass production of cat offerings flourished, especially during ancient Egypt's late and Ptolemaic periods, roughly 664 to 30 BCE. By then, the Great Pyramids were already ancient history. This wasn't one unchanging Egyptian custom, stretched across 3,000 years. It became especially large during the later chapters of Egyptian civilization. Bubastis was the heart of Bastet's cult, and extensive catacombs at Bubastis and Saqqara held cat mummies and cat statuettes dedicated as offerings. People came to the gods with illnesses, family problems, pregnancies, private fears, desperate hopes, and the same general pile of human emergencies we still drag toward anything that might be listening. A worshiper couldn't simply walk into a temple and ask to speak with Bastet personally. There was no appointment system, no divine customer service desk, no tiny bell beside a curtain marked, "Please ring for goddess." Instead, people could dedicate something connected to her: a statue, a bronze cat, a special container, or a mummified cat. The offering acted like a physical prayer. It might express gratitude, ask for protection, request health or children, or carry some other private appeal toward the divine world. The dead cat had become a messenger. Not every animal mummy served the same purpose. Some animals were pets buried with their owners. Some were food for the afterlife. Certain individual animals were treated as sacred representatives of a god and cared for during their lives. But the enormous numbers found in temple deposits and underground catacombs mostly belonged to another category: votive offerings. These were religious objects made to be dedicated. The cat wasn't necessarily preserved because somebody missed it. It was being turned into a request. And once enough people believe a cat mummy can carry a message to Bastet, the temple runs into a very practical spiritual problem. It needs cats. Not one cat, not somebody's elderly pet who died peacefully after 16 years of knocking cups off tables and pretending not to hear its name. It needs a supply. Ancient Egyptians produced millions of votive animal mummies across many species. Dogs, ibises, crocodiles, snakes, baboons, rams, birds, and cats all became part of different religious cults. We don't have an exact total for cat mummies, and anybody who gives you a suspiciously precise number is probably trying to sell you one. But the surviving catacombs make the scale impossible to ignore. This wasn't an occasional ritual. It required organized access to animals, people to keep them, materials to preserve them, and specialists to wrap, store, and distribute the finished offerings. We don't know exactly how every site organized this work, and the evidence doesn't give us one universal Egyptian cat factory. But at this scale, devotion had become an economy. The cat was now inventory. The ages of the mummified cats tell us what that meant. A 1981 study examined 53 wrapped cat mummies. 20 were between 1 and 4 months old. 17 were between 9 and 12 months old. Only 2 had lived beyond the age of 2. The researchers concluded that this pattern was very unlikely to reflect natural mortality. They believed the cats had been killed at ages considered useful for mummification, with some possibly kept longer for breeding. 7 of the 53 showed severe dislocation in the neck. The researchers interpreted those injuries as evidence that the cats had been deliberately killed by having their necks broken. They couldn't establish the cause of death for the remaining 46. That doesn't mean every mummy died this way. Most cat mummies haven't been scanned, and Egyptian animal mummification lasted for centuries. Some cats died naturally. Some were pets. Different places may have handled the animals differently. But between that larger study and modern scans of individual kittens, there's enough physical evidence to say that many young cats were intentionally killed to become offerings. The kitten I mentioned at the beginning of this story wasn't proof of one uniquely disturbed ancient cat owner. It was evidence of a system. Once the cat was dead, the process changed it into something sacred. Some bodies were dried and treated with oils or resins. They could be carefully positioned, wrapped in layers of linen, and finished with geometric patterns. Faces were sometimes painted onto the wrappings. Some cats were placed inside wooden or metal containers, shaped like idealized animals. The finished object didn't look like a dead kitten. It looked upright, alert, symmetrical, and eternal. The individual animal disappeared beneath the wrapping. In its place was the perfect idea of a cat. Not this particular kitten, with its own behavior, fears, and extremely strong opinion about one specific bowl. Just catness, neatly packaged for the gods. The quality varied. Some offerings were elaborate, while many were plainly wrapped. The researchers behind the study of 53 mummies suspected that the amount of care put into each one probably affected its price. Basic prayer, premium prayer, prayer plus, now with additional linen and an upgraded connection to Bastet. Then, modern scans uncovered something even stranger. Some cat mummies contain complete skeletons. Others contain only part of an animal. In wider surveys of animal mummies, researchers have even found bundles with no recognizable skeletal material inside. The immediate reaction is to call them fakes, ancient counterfeit cat mummies. Somebody throws a few scraps into a bundle, wraps it into a convincing animal shape, sells it to a pilgrim, and assumes the god won't inspect the merchandise too closely. Fraud may have happened. Once money, religion, high demand, and a product nobody is supposed to unwrap are all in the same room, somebody is going to become entrepreneurial. But an incomplete mummy wasn't necessarily considered worthless or fraudulent. A fragment of a sacred animal may have been enough. The wrapping, shape, dedication, and ritual could still create an object connected with a deity. The offering may not have needed one complete cat inside it. It needed to function as a cat. Eventually, the living animal could become secondary to the enormous structure of meaning built around it. The symbol ate the cat. So, did ancient Egyptians actually love cats? Breeding young animals, killing them, and turning them into religious merchandise doesn't look much like love from where we're sitting. But saying the Egyptians secretly didn't care about cats is too easy, and it misses the most disturbing part. The cats weren't killed because their religious importance was fake. Their religious importance created the demand. Within this system, death changed what the cat was. A living animal became an offering that could approach a goddess, carry a prayer, or ask for protection and favor. The killing wasn't happening somewhere outside the devotion. It was part of what made the devotion possible. That doesn't make the suffering imaginary. It doesn't make the practice gentle. The cat didn't sign up for a career in religious communications. But it explains how people could admire living cats while supporting a system that killed them. Humans are very good at loving what something represents, while treating the actual living thing as raw material. In ancient Egypt, a cat could be a hunter, companion, protector, divine symbol, sacred messenger, sacrificial body, source of temple income, and manufactured religious object. The simple version says ancient Egyptians loved cats so much they worshipped them. The fuller version is that they loved what cats represented so much that living cats became material for an enormous devotional industry. Ancient Egypt loved cats to death. And somehow, that still wasn't the final indignity. On February 10, 1890, an extraordinary shipment was auctioned in Liverpool. It contained the remains of roughly 180,000 mummified cats from a cemetery at Beni Hassan in Egypt. Together, they weighed around 19.5 tons. These cats had been mummified, wrapped as sacred objects, buried for centuries, dug up, packed onto a ship, and carried from Alexandria to Liverpool. Then they were sold for agricultural fertilizer. The ancient Egyptians had looked at these animals and seen messengers capable of reaching a goddess. Victorian Britain looked at the same sacred remains and thought, the soil could use a little something. It's difficult to decide which part of this is more human. Turning cats into products because they were sacred, or digging up those sacred products and spreading them over fields. The cats endured both kinds of obsession, the need to worship things and the need to use them. Ancient Egypt loved cats to death. The modern world couldn't even leave them dead. Still curious? Choose another strange thing before the sack opens. Like and subscribe.